Good morning and welcome everyone to the California Broadband Council meeting. I am Leanna Bailey Crimmins and I have the honor of being the chair of this wonderful council that we will be discussing some great topics today. We're going to get an executive report from the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy. We're also going to have several updates regarding the Broadband for All initiatives. There's been a lot of progress over the past years that we've been working on it, and these updates include middle mile broadband initiative updates, and of course, last mile broadband initiative updates. We're also going to hear from the California Emerging Technology Fund on affordable connectivity program initiatives. There's been a lot of accomplishments there. We're lucky to have Sunny McPeak be able to provide that update for us. And then we're also going to lastly hear from the California Broadband Council is going to hear about the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act programs and the planning related to the digital equity plans. With that, we're going to go ahead and call roll call. Mr. Prisabella, if you please review the housekeeping items and proceed with the roll call.
Good morning, California Broadband Council members and members of the public. Attendees, we will have time at the end of the meeting for public comment. Presenters, please cue Fiona to advance slides. And committee members, please use the raise your hand feature when you wish to speak. The chair will call on you to ensure your comments are heard. Roll call. Director Bailey Crimmins.
Here.
Commissioner Hout.
Here.
Deputy Director Green.
Here.
Director Winkler.
Here.
Deputy Director Jameson.
Present.
Deputy Secretary Pepper.
Present.
Miss McPeak.
Here.
Deputy Secretary Flores.
Here.
Mr. Chisholm.
Here.
Secretary Snyder.
Present.
Mr. Aguayo.
Here.
Miss Smith.
Here.
Chairwoman, we do have a quorum, and back to you.
Thank you very much. The second order of business is to actually open it up to any of the committee members to see if there are any comments or questions before we get into the official agenda. I'd like to open it up to my colleagues. Is there any questions or comments? All right, I see none. So we're going to go ahead and go into the executive report update from Mr. Scott Adams. Scott?
Well, thank you, Chairwoman and Director Bailey Crimmins. Thank you, Broadband Council members and members of the public. I'm Scott Adams. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy, and I'm really pleased to give a real high-level, update on our work thus far. Next slide, please. So, wanted to kind of bring us back to the last meeting we had at the first quarter. There was a lot of updates and progress reported out on the 24 action items that were assigned to members of the Broadband Council and other state agencies. We reported out that significant progress had been made on all of those. We have now updated the action plan tracker on the Broadband for All portal so that members of the public can see and track the progress that's been making on those efforts. Did also want to note that as part of our work plan for this year, we had indicated that there were a lot of remaining, or for the remaining open items that are included in the action plan, many of the efforts and focus of those are being integrated into and as part of the digital equity and BEAD planning process, which you'll hear about later. But wanted to brief you on that. Secondly, really good news that you will hear more from Sunny McPeak and the California Emerging Technology on later during the broadband adoption and affordable connectivity program mobilization, but a number of state entities have received outreach grants from the Federal Communications Commission to help continue to support the efforts on the mobilization. So the California Department of Technology was a recipient of one of those grants, and we're really excited to leverage those funds to support the ongoing efforts of state agencies and local jurisdictions. Really wanted to underscore for the council that council members and members of the extended broadband ecosystem family are really putting the focus on engagement into hyperdrive, and you will hear and see about extensive engagement with partners and stakeholders and all the Broadband for All initiatives, over 4,000 stakeholders, partners, entities, individuals over the last several months. And then a significant amount of progress is done on BEAD and digital equity planning. And as we've kind of talked about in the past meetings, we have the existing Broadband for All efforts and investments, and the digital equity planning process and the BEAD planning processes are really the next chapters in Broadband for All. And I think you're all going to be pleased to see the progress that's been made on those. So Director Bailey Crimmins, that is my quick update. I can turn it back over to you and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Adams. Is there any questions from the council members, at least on the executive briefing? I know we're going to go into project updates and there's more opportunity, but I always want to give the council members always as much opportunity as possible to provide comment. Any thoughts before we go into the official project updates? All right, I see none. So back to you, Mr. Adams, on providing what Department of Technology and the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy is doing regarding Broadband for All.
Great. Well, thank you again, Chair Bailey Crimmins, members of the council. And it looks like my video has been. Okay, I will keep going. If the logistics team can work on my video, that would be fantastic. Really pleased to support and want to reinforce, for the Broadband Council members and the members of the public, is that the digital divide is a persistent issue that impacts 1 in 5 Californians who lack, either reliable service, the devices or the skills and training they need to navigate this modern tech-dependent world. Next slide, please. Oh, no, you can keep it there. So I guess what we've really tried to do here at the Broadband Council is to stress that Broadband for All is the overarching, program to close the digital divide, and it comprised of, many significant initiatives that are being coordinated, that are interdependent and complementary to get to the overall goals of Broadband for All. And so, the three most important, steps the state is doing right now are related to the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, the suite of last mile programs and initiatives that the CPUC is overseeing, and then the statewide affordable connectivity program mobilization that really CETF has been the sort of designated champion and lead at the Broadband Council, but is getting significant support and partnership from the Department of Technology, the California State Libraries, the Department of Education, the Department of Aging, et cetera, and really developing and driving partnerships with, local entities, et cetera. So that being said, wanted to hand over the microphone to Deputy Director Mark Monroe of the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative to report out on the progress on that, significant component of Broadband for All that he and his team and many other partners and stakeholders are have been working very hard on. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Scott, and good morning, committee members. Mark Monroe, the Deputy Director for here at CDT for the MMBI program. As we proceed with the execution phase of the project, the MMBI team has continued to make progress on the project, and this morning I'm happy to provide the following updates. the potential alternative frameworks for network architecture that are potentially available and under consideration as part of this, potential benefits of IRUs or indefeasible rights of use, long-term leases, as well as Caltrans progress with its pre-construction and construction work. So as many may remember, there was always a concern about how best to use the $3.8 billion that has been allocated for the MMBI project by the legislature to reach the state's unserved communities. The state initially envisioned reaching these communities with the need to have Caltrans construct up to 75%, with the hope that the state could identify 25% from existing infrastructure that could be leased from other providers using IRU leases. As we all know, as is the case with any large multi-year public works project of this magnitude, the construction components carry significant risks due to the risk of inflation and the geographical challenges. Driving up costs are making some construction impossible. So to mitigate against these risks and unknowns, the state took several approaches simultaneously at the same time as we worked through the initial construction bid process. We completed this last January. CDT went out to bid through an RFI squared process to identify the universe of alternative tools available to the state in developing an MMBI network that reaches the unserved and underserved communities identified by the PUC. What this chart here reflects is that the state may be able to meet up to half of its needs using IRU leases. I do want to make sure the committee and the public understand that we heard the initial concerns expressed regarding digital equity as it relates to IRU leases of existing infrastructure as opposed to standalone Caltrans construction. So to that end, it was a high priority that we approach all of the communities that will be served by the network equitably. As you can see here, significantly more IRU and joint build or purchase opportunities may be available than originally anticipated. We want to certainly assure the committee and the public that regardless of the means CDT may use in developing the network, it is CDT's intent that all segments and communities get the same quantity and quality of infrastructure. So for example, in pursuing IRUs, we're looking for opportunities for new fiber with the same frequency of access that's being designed for the constructed segments. A combination of approaches such as those reflected here may be helpful in avoiding high-cost construction areas in for certain terrains. The availability of this mix of approaches will be helpful in the state meeting the federal ARPA deadlines, and in any cases where existing infrastructure can be used, faster broadband access will likely be available to the surrounding communities. We want committee members and the public to be aware of these network alternatives that are under consideration. It's also important that that everybody understand that the negotiations for these are underway currently, and so we're still kind of working out what these might look like. This is more conceptual in terms of the percentages. The one deal that has been finalized consistent with this so far, some of you may have heard about, is that in March we finalized a joint build deal with Arcadian for 306 miles of the network between LA, Barstow, Needles, and Vidal Junction. So that's a great partnership there that we estimate saved at least $55 million over standalone Caltrans construction. To that end, CDT has asked that Caltrans continue its pre-construction work on the entire network, with the exception of this Arcadian project, until CDT knows that it has an alternative solution to Caltrans construction for a given segment. It's vital that Caltrans continue to do permitting and design work so that it is ready for any necessary construction or any construction that might possibly be necessary. So to that end, the update on Caltrans pre-construction and construction efforts a little later, it's intended to reflect its work on that entire 10,000 miles up to this point. You can jump to the next slide. As noted, IRUs appear to be a significantly important alternative for meeting the needs of the network. These are, I think most will understand, but this is a chance for these are capitalized leases of fiber and conduit. Their normal term is 20 years. They're considered for ARPA purposes, for the federal funding we're using, to be capital expenditures. These would normally be for dark fiber, and so that means the state would normally provide the electronics and the huts to house them. And then the state would have to install vaults for access to the network, as you know, in order to meet the state's accessibility needs. In terms of the potential benefits, this really IRUs convert a high quality asset into an open access public network. They create value for communities faster than construction of new network would, given that that all or part of the components are already there. IRUs require significantly less disruption to land from construction and traffic problems. IRUs can be significantly more cost effective than standalone construction, and IRUs provide the same level of service in terms of capacity, speed, and access as the constructed segments. IRUs would need to meet the state's policy goals for open access, 288 count fiber, and multiple access points per mile. So compared to standalone construction, IRUs mitigate some of these unknown schedule and cost risks associated with standalone construction. You can jump to the next slide. Just like constructed segments, IRUs include ongoing maintenance and operations to ensure reliable service to last mile providers. So for these reasons, Golden State Net, our third-party administrator, has recommended using IRUs to lease any segments of the MMBI network where existing infrastructure is available and aligned to defined MMBI routes in quantities and accessibility at a more cost-effective price point compared to construction alternatives. We jump to the last slide. And so in terms of the rest of the project, Caltrans is continuing, as noted, its pre-construction work. It is approximately 34% complete on its environmental permitting and design work. And it's got the remaining 66% in progress. That means it started on all 10,000 miles, which is a really important measure. In terms of construction contracts, I had mentioned, and I think last time we had mentioned that we had gone out to bid for 5,100 miles of job order contracts for master agreements. These master agreements were signed in March, and this provides for construction up to 5,150 miles of the network. Similarly, Caltrans has gone out for has started a construction manager general contractor work on 2,300 miles of the network. So in terms of its work, Caltrans is really moving ahead in both its pre-construction and its construction work. And at the Middle Mile Advisory Committee meeting last Friday, it announced a rollout plan for moving to construction of 23% this next June, and then another 27% in December, and then moving another 23% in June of next year, so that by September of next year, all 100% of any segments that Caltrans is constructing would be under construction. So big progress, and really important in terms of getting started with construction and getting started with all the network components earlier. We all know we've got a 2024 deadline for getting all of these funds under contract, and I think what we see here is that we're in line to be ahead of schedule on almost all of that. Similarly, we have to have the funds spent by December of 2026. And so by moving to construction and moving to sign these agreements much earlier, it really extends the amount of time that the contractors have to do the work, and reduces the risk that we don't meet the deadline. So that's my update on the MMBI. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. I'd like to open it up to the council members to see if they have any questions for you regarding the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. I see Sarah Smith.
Thank you. I think there was a slide where you referenced the speed of the network from the leases. And I just wanted to get clarification about the speed because it was listed in a unit that I was unfamiliar with.
Okay, yeah. All I was trying to reference there, I'm sorry for the confusion. what we're trying to reference there is the speed to service, right? So if we start construction now on a given segment, then we have to go through the whole process of doing the pre-construction and then and putting in the infrastructure. It's going to just take longer to do that. So when I talk about speed to service, it's really the speed to when we can be able to actually provide service because it's existing infrastructure. Does that make sense?
I meant there was like a number that said all of the IRU lines were 288K.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The 288 count fiber. Yeah, so our standard has been when we're building is to use 288 count fiber. And I think there's been some concerns that that if you lease, then you could potentially get less. And there are a number of ways of developing a network, but I think my point there is that for the purposes of making sure that we're treating all of the areas equitably, whether we're leasing or building or purchasing, everybody's getting that 288 count fiber, which is expected to be completely future proof.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I also see Lori Pepper. Lori, go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. I don't have a question. I just wanted to express our thanks to the entire CDT team, Director Bailey Crimmins, Deputy Director Monroe, and the entire team for the partnership that we've had over the past couple of years. I think the update that we see today is really exciting, and we see all the progress that has been made, and that we are on track to get this done. So I think we're just really excited to keep moving forward, and just a big thank you to everyone.
Great, thanks, Lori. All right, are there any other questions from the council members? I have one. So Mark, I know you did have this schedule. Can you just again remind the council members of the deadlines related to the federal? I know we have to have something in contract by a certain date and actually have construction completed. I know it was at the very end of your slide, but I think it's just important that we all remind ourselves of what the end goal looks like. So if you do that, I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as I think we're all tracking, the original $3.25 billion were federal ARPA funds. Those have to be under contract by the end of December 2024. So whether they're constructions, leases, joint builds, whatever they are, they have to be under contract. And then the funds have to be liquidated and the project finished by December of 2026. So those are the two timeframes that are really driving the necessity to go quickly on this project.
Great, thank you, Mr. Moreau. All right, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and go to the next agenda item. It says the last mile, because we know that the middle mile is basically the digital superhighway, and we have to obviously connect to the communities. And that is where Commissioner Houck is going to talk to us about last mile accomplishments. Commissioner.
Great. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here to present our updates on the PUC's broadband efforts. And as you all know, we've been working hard to meet the mandates of SB 156 through our CASF and our Broadband for All proceedings, as well as our new proceeding that we just opened, BEAD, and I'll be talking about those as we move forward. I did just want to note just how important community engagement is and how much we appreciate our partnership with CDT with the digital equity and BEAD programs. CDT has been taking the laboring oar and working with CETF on setting up numerous community engagement meetings across the state, and we've been working with them to present the BEAD components, and the Commission's been taking the lead on the regional tribal consultations that will also occur. And just want to give a shout out to Scott Adams in particular, CDT, and Sunny McPeak with CETF for all of their work. I attended the event in San Diego last Friday, and it was a packed house, and people were very engaged, great representation of elected officials, community leaders, community-based organizations, tribes. So just again, wanted to say how much I appreciate that and how important this outreach is going to be in moving these initiatives forward. And just wanted to thank our staff, particularly Rob Osborne and Maria Ellis, and our tribal advisor, Ken Holbrook, for all the work they're doing in helping to coordinate on these events. And so with that, I will move into providing some specific updates on our initiatives. And I'm going to start with the local technical assistance program. So there was $50 million that was allocated for local and tribal technical assistance. And this is to facilitate last mile broadband infrastructure projects and to support local agency and tribal efforts to expand broadband to families and communities that lack sufficient internet access. And we have had a tremendous response to this program. We've had 90 grants awarded for a total of $40.45 million through March of 2023. And from August through March of 2023, we've had 120 applications requesting $4.47 million. So we're oversubscribed. So we currently have $2.4 million left in the tribal governments set aside, and but the full 45 for the local governments has been allocated. This map gives a representation of where awards have been made, and you can see that there's awards that have been granted across the state. So again, I think this has been really successful, and we see that there is a need and a desire for local entities and tribal governments to utilize this technical assistance to do pre-construction work to get projects ready. Next slide. So we've also been working to update the map of communities eligible for our federal funding account. We received significant feedback on the initial map that was released and have been working diligently to update the map with a new version. So we have a version available. It's still a work in progress, but based on stakeholder feedback, we've removed predefined priority funding areas. The underlying data now better reflects the number of unserved locations that have been identified. The scoring for existing broadband service is need-based. I cannot talk, sorry. Is based on socioeconomic metrics, has been adjusted consistent with comments, and the new public map is going to aid development of last mile grant funding proposals. So again, I want to underscore that while it is still a work in progress, we have published an interim version on our website, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with stakeholders as we continue to improve the maps. And again, we'll continue to provide updates in this meeting and other meetings where we're presenting. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk about the California Advanced Services Fund grants, give an update on our adoption, infrastructure, and public housing and low-income communities grants. For adoption, the grants to public entities and community-based organizations for digital literacy and broadband access projects. We have 105 projects that were awarded $8.6 million. We have 13 applications requesting $9.46 million that have come in for second quarter of 2023. On our infrastructure grants, we've subsidized the cost of middle and last mile infrastructure to expand high quality communication services throughout California. And the current application window closes June 1st of this year. And the public map will help identify eligible project areas now available. So we also have the CASF public map available. For our public housing and low income communities, we have grants that build networks offering free service for low-income residents in communities such as public housing developments, farm worker housing, and mobile home parks. There were 31 applications for $1.6 million that were submitted in our current award cycle. And I also want to discuss the fact that we, in our prior decision, we had indicated we would be issuing a proposal to look at changing some of the rules for the public housing account to make it more user-friendly and accessible. We are hoping to issue that proposal for public comment very soon. And I would just ask everyone that's interested in that to look for that proposal, provide feedback. We are potentially looking to allow low-income communities to apply for funding that would expand the access to broadband in their area. And again, really appreciate your comments on that proposal once it's issued and look forward to your feedback. Next slide. Okay. I thought there was going to be another slide that may be missing here on the BEAD program. So just a brief update, and I'll follow up to make sure that you have the slides so that they can be posted. But the commission recently opened a formal rulemaking for the BEAD program, the Broadband Equity, Access and Deployment. BEAD is an incredible opportunity for California to receive federal funding for broadband infrastructure. It's $42 billion nationwide, and we are looking to anticipating California will get roughly $900 million to $2 billion of this funding. The federal rules for BEAD give overall guidance, while the Public Utilities Commission will be determining the schedule and process for selecting recipients in our rulemaking. These new networks will be built in unserved and underserved communities across California, and there's the slide. And again, I mentioned the community engagement efforts that are going on in coordination with CDT, and we'll be doing tribal consultations. And these events are intended to build, the community engagement events are intended to build capacity for future implementation, provide important information to community representatives, and create a forum to get real-time feedback on how to best eliminate the digital divide. And again, these are happening this month through June, April through June of this year. And we encourage anyone interested to please participate in the events, provide comments in the proceeding. This slide provides an overview on how to participate in the proceeding. It's rulemaking 2302-016. And we just extended the reply comment period, and we're seeking input on 14 categories of questions, and you can find those questions in the order instituting rulemaking. Again, if you want to become a party, please file in the proceeding. There's information on the slide on how to reach out to our public advisor's office, who can provide assistance and guidance on how to become a party or to file comments. You can also provide comments through our docket card. And if you want additional information or to reach out to staff or my office to discuss the rulemaking and the program, please do. We're very excited about getting this going. We've got some quick timelines that we've got to meet, but we are committed to community engagement and making sure that the program is going to fit California's needs. Next slide. I think there's one more. And this is just a timeline to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. So we have to submit our 5-year action plan. Is due in August of this year. The allocation amounts will be announced in June. And again, the sub-grantee rulemaking is going to be occurring now through the end of the year. And we're looking forward to participation and feedback from everyone, and are just, again, very excited about the program and how it's going to help supplement our needs to eliminate the digital divide here in California. And I believe that should be our last slide, and I'm available for questions. And also Director Osborne is on to help respond to questions as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Hauk. A pleasure. Thank you for the the last mile and the BEAD update. I'd like to open up to council members to see if you have questions for the commissioner. I see none at this time, but I know we are also going to be covering the joint effort that we're doing with digital equity and BEAD later on. So there is a second opportunity if anybody has questions for you or Mr. Osborne. So thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and go to the next agenda item, which is the Affordable Connectivity Program. And we are going to be, we have the luxury of having Sunny McPeak, the President and CEO of CETF, to be able to provide that update. So Sunny, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Bailey Crimmins. What a pleasure it is to join everybody here again for the California Broadband council meeting and to report on the implementation actually of the Broadband for All action plan as it relates to affordable offers being distributed throughout California to those who qualify. As the California Broadband Council knows, we focused a very aggressive goal on ACP a year ago to try to get to 90% enrollment of all eligible households by the end of 2024. There are 5.8 million households that are eligible. If we go to the next slide, I think this deserves a really big drum roll. We crossed over 2 million at the beginning of the month and are now at, as of Monday, 2,085,482. That is huge. That is the most of any state. And we are continuing to, with everybody's help throughout California, gain on the rest of the states. We are creeping back up in terms of an increasing percentage of all of the enrollments nationwide. So we'll go to the next slide and report on affordable connectivity in-person enrollment events. This is the latest in the month of April. So just to sort of recap, it was with the partnership that Deputy Director Scott Adams covered at the beginning of this meeting, particularly with the Department of Technology, with the California Department of Education, the State Library, California State Association of Counties, all the members of the Broadband Council. We started back in the beginning of this fiscal year with the Department of Education identifying timeframes in which we could do statewide mobilization for in-person enrollment that didn't conflict with school schedules, but actually complemented sort of natural cycles within schools. And that meant we did one in August, one in October, and now the month of April with 14 on Saturday. The first one was actually in San Diego on Thursday in conjunction with the Southern Border workshop for BEAD, Digital Equity, Broadband for All workshop. And there are others, as you see, scheduled that'll be happening in the rest of May. The net total out of all this, with everything that the state has done under the umbrella of the California Broadband Council, and with partners who have then taken additional responsibility, Los Angeles County and Riverside County, San Jose Digital Inclusion Partnership, there will be almost 100 in-person enrollment events in fiscal year 22-23. We see also those people who come to those events actually being the most needy. Disproportionately higher numbers of households with children in school because they really need the connectivity. And we had very, very good support from internet service providers this last Saturday. There were at least 4 companies very active that had representation at various sites throughout California, working with the local host. I want to mention we had an unusual circumstance that we all had to respond to, which was the Federal Communications Commission website that was to be offline for maintenance on Friday evening, which we knew about, and be back on at 2 a.m. Eastern time, did not come back on until about 12:30 Pacific time. And it came back on, I think, only because, fortunately, I was able to contact the Chief of Staff of FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, who got directly to the maintenance people, and they figured out they hadn't flipped all the switches. So not only was the public-facing FCC site not operating for the morning of Saturday, the 22nd, but none of the ISPs could access their own dedicated login site as well. So anyway, our folks did a great pivot, and we had more than 250 folks that were standing in line waiting. We processed them in terms of intakes, and then most of them were able to wait and got signed up. So I think that's a very, very good sign. I want to compliment also state agencies and just give you a report that we've experienced in the last 2 days. And that is, we know that the 3 big strategies that are so important to actually increase in enrollment are: first, tell people they're qualified. Let those who are eligible know. So the big eligibility categories are Medi-Cal, CalFresh, WIC is also in there, the National School Lunch Program, and those on Pell Grants for higher education assistance. And once we tell people, 80% will be able to enroll themselves. 20% need to be enrolled in person, and that's still about 680,000 households in California that we need to plan to assist in person. They need something other than just being able to log on. They may not even have access to the internet. You have to enroll online to get online, all of those kinds of issues. You need to have the right paperwork. And so what has actually made a huge difference there, we also want to increase awareness, then we need to do this in-person enrollment, have that as a backup, is that the California Health Services Department notified those on Medi-Cal, and we immediately saw, as soon as those letters start going out, the calls in our call center go from, I mean, they jump over 1,000. We have the ability to immediately get assistance to everybody who calls. We have a number of community-based organizations that take that call, will help people. It's by phone, but in person on on phone to get assigned, get assisted and signed up. And then most recently, the Department of Social Services started sending notification. Again, over 1,000 calls immediately on Monday, Tuesday coming into the call center. So that's very, very important. I also want to do a shout out to the California Public Utilities Commission, Commissioner Houck, Director Osborne, Maria Ellis, and Bill Gadecki reached out to all of the CPUC, California Advanced Services Fund adoption grantees, invited them to a working session a week ago so they could know about our mobilization in April and become involved. And those who participated, I think it was 18, 19 of the grantees, actually, many of them were helpful in coming to both the San Diego enrollment and also on Saturday, and are going to be coordinated with the rest of these events that you see on your screen. You can also see it's a pretty diverse set of geography locations, which means we're really available out in California. The next slide, please. Which I think is, these are wonderful photos, and you can see the variety of locations. I mean, it is a challenge to find a physical location that is open on a Saturday, that has connectivity, where you can actually have multiple people enrolling, so enough bandwidth, and that there's enough room for people to wait. We had, as I said, some standing in line in the morning when the FCC website was not up. And then literally training all these people. I want to really acknowledge my colleagues, Marissa Conche, Charles Gardner, Young Yu, who lead our effort and train all of the site captains, all of the people doing enrollment, all of the people monitoring the lines. And then I got to participate yesterday in the debrief, in which we get feedback from all of our partners throughout California to improve the next time. I'll conclude by saying that there is a really interesting opportunity we have, and that is all of those that are enrolled, where we have been able to provide Chromebooks, either that we had to donate or that are coming from other sources. Donations we receive are internet service providers. We do a drawing of a Chromebook for about every 10 people who enroll in ACP, and that's a big incentive for folks to come. And those folks who receive a Chromebook actually complete a more extensive questionnaire, and they agree to be expert advisors for the next 2 years to the ACP engagement. And we're about to go back and start again getting feedback from them on what difference it makes. This is a unique cohort in the country that that we can benefit from, and the Federal Communications Commission is very interested in hearing back from people actually what difference it makes to be online. So kudos to everyone who did the work on Saturday. And thanks to all of the state agencies for stepping up to directly notify those who are eligible, because that's the first big step in everything we do. I think that concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you,
Oh,
Ms.
no,
Mc-
it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Unless
Keep
Scott
going,
wanted to
keep
do
going.
this. I'm sorry. Here is a very good listing of all of the federal communication grants that California received. We got only almost 6 million. Of course, we're the biggest state, so we'd like to have a lot more. But you can see that we have, we look to get at least 10% of all the federal dollars, although we're 13% of the population, but at least 10%. So we're right there. And the state of California received a grant. Several partners who've been engaged. We also received a grant, although it's half of what we applied for. And in Southern California Association of Governments, who received a grant, has been working with all of the other Southern California grantees already. That includes the county of Los Angeles and the city, the county of San Diego. I will say the city of San Diego also has another grant from another source, and they are coordinating now with each other. That city-county collaboration in San Diego is very, very important on their ACP enrollment. And so it is our intent when the FCC does finally send out to us the final documents to sign. We received ours today to sign for actually receiving the grant. They announced everything on March 10th, but then have taken all this time to go through the last paperwork, that we will start convening all of these grantees and the PUC grantees, if that works for the commission. Think it will, Commissioner Houck, so that we actually have a coordinated effort, a sharing effort throughout California to come as close as we can to our goal of getting everyone enrolled, and also just showing the demand to the federal government so they will renew the ACP program. I do think this is the last slide.
Well, thank you, Ms. McPeak. It is always a pleasure to hear, because what I always say is that's where the rubber hits the road, right? Where it actually is affecting households. And we know that even, college students going into universities, 20% don't have access to technology. And sometimes the Chromebooks that you were just saying are the first ones they've had. And it makes such a big difference. And even if they're not IT per se majors, they do use that technology to make a difference in their lives, and in many cases their families' lives. So amazing. And I know we couldn't do the applaud, but when we saw that number of how many people that have enrolled, that was because of all the outreach you mentioned, hundreds of thousands, a new number. I think it was like 1.9 when I saw it just a few months ago. So that is a big jump. Congratulations to everyone that was a part of it. And thank you, Ms. McPeak, for pointing that out. Great work. I'd like to open up to any of the other council members that would like to comment or have questions. Yes, Commissioner Houck.
Yes, just wanted to comment. As you saw, this is just a tremendous effort, and it's getting results. And just want to echo your comment, Secretary, and just all of the work that CETF is doing, and what a tremendous showing it is. And there's still more work to do, but we're doing it, and we're happy to coordinate and collaborate, and look forward to continuing to do so with CETF on this.
Fantastic. And I know I see a hand on the attendees. I just wanted to remind everyone, we will definitely give opportunity during public comment, but typically we get through all the agenda and then we'll go to public comment. So keep your hand up, jot down your questions, and we'll make sure you have that opportunity. Is there any other council members that would like to have questions of Ms. McPeak before we go to the next agenda item? All right, I see none. So the next agenda item is actually an update regarding the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, also known as NTIA. We've heard a lot about the investment in infrastructure and Jobs Act broadband programs. And so today we have an update on both digital equity, and then obviously Rob Osborne is also available to complement Commissioner Houck's comments earlier about the BEAD planning program, because we've been on the road together, traveling all parts of the state, and it's just great to see again the partnership. People always ask me, how is your partnership with CPUC and Caltrans, all these efforts? And I will say we are locked arm in arm, and it is always wonderful to see the results that are happening at the local level. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Scott Adams to provide an update.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director Bailey Kremen and members of the council. Glad to come back and provide an update on the progress on planning to leverage the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act broadband programs to build out the next chapters of Broadband for All. I also want to just echo the kudos. As you see, there's such tremendous work that's already going on in the existing investment and efforts on the middle of the last mile and the broadband adoption work to leverage ACP. And as Director Bailey Kremen said, that's really a result of the collaboration of not only the Broadband Council member entities, but the other, partner state agencies and departments who were doing the heavy lifting, and obviously the local and regional partners, community-based organizations, et cetera, that are doing the implementation at the ground level. So with that, I'll go on to the next slide. Is really, we're in the process of planning to pull additional hundreds of millions, if not, potentially more, to support the goals of Broadband for All. And so the digital equity planning process, just wanted to reiterate that as a result of Assembly Bill 2750, the California Department of Technology was tasked with, seeking federal funding and developing a state digital equity plan in consultation with the PUC and the California Broadband Council members, acknowledging that this effort requires extensive stakeholder engagement, and input from across the board. We have developed the planning process, which we reported on, that consisted of really 5 kind of multimodal and cross-cutting opportunities to receive feedback and input from the ecosystem and to acquire data and information to help inform decisions on the digital equity planning. So the 5 points are just the statewide planning group that is going to follow this meeting, and it consists of the 10 member entities of the California Broadband Council and has been expanded out to 22 other state entities that either have a direct connection to the covered populations or subject matter expertise tied to policy outcomes that the digital equity plan will address. The second component is the outcome area working groups that are really tied to bring subject matter experts from across the state, from communities and residents together to identify not just digital equity barriers, but strategies that will address outcomes in education, health, workforce and economic development, digital literacy and inclusion, access to essential services, accessibility, and increased civic participation. And then very specifically, given how important it is, to partner with our tribal nations, a tribal collaboration working group. The third prong is really a number of surveys designed to, on the residential side, do a needs assessment and seek feedback from the California population across the state. There's a phone survey that we're partnering with CETF on, but then a complementary online mobile phone friendly survey that we're at the final stretches of getting that translated into 14 different languages with audio files for folks who may have low levels of literacy or sight impairment. The other survey tool we've created is a digital equity ecosystem mapping tool to help us compile the asset inventory of entities, programs, partners, resources that are already out there, helping to close the digital divide, to really get a comprehensive statewide scan that will help us understand what's going on in the various areas. And then, as has noted before, given the need to get out into communities, we are literally probably a quarter way through hosting or co-hosting 20 Broadband for All digital equity and BEAD regional planning workshops. And that's really hosting public workshops in every economic region in the state to get the Department of Technology and PUC and other state agencies and entities together with the folks who are doing the work on the ground, and making sure we get their feedback and recommendations on how to inform both BEAD and digital equity. And then the last piece is the ongoing statewide public engagement mentioned at the top. Through all of these various components, we've been able to engage with thousands of entities and individuals across the state in a very meaningful way. And we'll pull together all these inputs to help shape the digital equity plan. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So I think there is maybe a slide that's missing, but I can use this slide for that. Before we go to next steps, I want to highlight the progress. And so the statewide planning group, we held the first meeting in January. We're going to have the second meeting right after this meeting, and we've been able to engage with, I think the first meeting was close to 200 entities and organizations, and we hope it will be well attended today. The outcome area working group meetings, we held the first 2 rounds of the 6 working groups in the months of February and March, and we're pleased to see that the attendance was somewhere between 80 and 120 entities at each of those meetings. So really getting great feedback and input. And then, as I just mentioned before, we have launched the digital equity phone survey. We have launched the ecosystem mapping tool and created an additional one for internet service providers because there's a slightly different category of information we're seeking to gain from them. On the regional planning workshops, we were in Merced and Fresno the week before last. We were in San Diego last Friday, and pleased to say that tomorrow we will be in Chico, and Friday we will be in Santa Rosa. Lastly, hopefully you are all on our distribution list. We send out a joint monthly Broadband for All email update every month to a distribution of about 4,200 stakeholders that have joined us at various parts of the process, and we've launched the digital equity webpage on the Broadband for All portal, where a lot of the information about these are housed. Next, I think we have to maybe go back to the last slide. Just want to say next steps, a lot of work to be done, a lot of time to engage and continue to receive feedback and input from our partners and stakeholders. This is, a list of when the next planning group meetings are, the outcome area working group meetings are. Those can be found on the Broadband for All portal in the events section. Links to register to those virtual opportunities. The ecosystem mapping tool is also on the Broadband for All portal. Please, if you haven't and you're in this space, make sure that your organization's work is mapped and counted and included as we consider the development of the digital equity plan. And then additional planning workshops will be coming up. I think we have a slide after this. And then anticipate that a draft digital equity plan will be posted and sent out into the ecosystem sometime in July, August timeframe, and we will have a 30-day public comment period to make sure that folks who haven't had a chance have a chance to weigh in, and folks that have, the thousands of folks that are working with us, if you've got some tweaks or revisions, we're going to want to hear those. Next slide, please. Next slide. This right here, if you could just pause for a sec on the previous slide. Huge call to action on the regional planning workshops. The broadband council members, you have extensive networks of folks who have significant information and input to share with us. We would enroll your assistance to really promote these events out. You can see these are the registration numbers for the upcoming events in the right-hand corner. We'd like to drive those up. We have building in capacity for up to 200 individuals and entities at each event. So that's really a call to action, not just to the broadband council members, but to members of the public and other stakeholders. And then, do I have one more slide? Again, rough approximation. What this slide is intended to share, and the most important thing to know, is that we began the process in November of last year. We received our grant, at about the same time, but we are conducting multiple work streams between now and November when the final plan is due. And what's important about the final plan being due is that the state will receive a statutory allocation of the $1.44 billion in capacity grants that will help entities then implement that plan. So again, each of the different boxes on this timeline are critically important: the survey and the mapping, the data and gap analysis, the local outreach events, the draft plan, and then certainly the public comment period. That concludes my presentation, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share that with the council and members of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Is there any questions from the council members? Maybe, Mr. Adams, I'll go ahead and ask you a question, because I know on the first slide you talked about online surveys, phone surveys. I know in some circumstances, most of us, when I see calls come in on my phone that I don't recognize, I don't necessarily always answer it. I know that that is a challenge, but we also want to make sure we're getting as much feedback, that we have the in-person events, we have these committee meetings, and I mean, it sounds like you're getting a lot of feedback in order to pull that plan together and make sure it really informs and represents really the state of California. Just maybe a quick few comments on how you kind of are doing this. And obviously you did decide, because of the last mile local, really to do these events with CPUC, so that and I know the BEAD part of it as well, is that we get to get everybody in, all the thought leaders in the room, and Sunny McPeak is facilitating, and lots of good stuff going on. I just want to make sure that people know kind of what behind the scenes, what's happening, and how you're going to kind of pull this plan together.
Got it. Well, and thank you very much. So I heard a couple different components there that I would say, and hopefully I get the order of the answers correct here, Director Bailey Kremens. I think what I would like to do is take a step back and about our strategy on how we are engaging with members of the public and communicating the interconnectedness of the Broadband for All programs. We've been very intentional at the Broadband Council here, and very intentional at our summits and other meetings, that folks need to understand that Broadband for All is one big program to close the digital divide, and it has the three main goals of ensuring that all California residents have access to high-speed broadband at home, schools, libraries, and businesses, that they have access to affordable service and devices, and that they have pathways and access to training to get the skills they need to fully succeed in modern life. And so we've heard from the ecosystem, and we've heard from members of the legislature that as much as we can, we need to engage with folks given limited capacity, kind of on both ends, and say, if we're talking about the middle mile, we need to make sure that folks are aware of the last mile programs that CPUC is administering to complement and connect back to the middle mile and empower those goals. And while middle and last mile programs have a large focus on infrastructure, that broadband adoption and, leveraging the affordability, program, there are millions of Californians that are eligible for this program that don't necessarily need to wait for new infrastructure to be built or new solutions to be built. I want to caveat that affordability is going to be an issue regardless, because there are areas where the cost of service is, the choice is limited, the cost is high, and even with the subsidy for the covered populations, it's a little low. It's still an economic barrier, but the way we've approached this over the last 2 years is that broadband for all is middle mile, last mile adoption. And so the way we've approached these workshops is we want to make sure that we set the table, people understand the broadband for all programs that are currently in flight, that we engage fulsomely, 2/3, and really hear from communities about digital equity barriers, how they impact disparate outcomes, and then what are strategies that can be implemented, statewide and locally to overcome those. And then again, at the workshops, bringing the middle mile team, the PUC team, and the GoBiz and CDT team to say, okay, here's the map, here's how you can connect and where you can connect to the middle mile. We want to know what your plans are. Here's the CPUC programs, and permitting on that side is really important. So that's the overarching strategy. And when, going back to your question about the multi-pronged process, we live in a very large state, 167,000 square miles, and nearly 40 million, residents. That, we know that the administration and the folks here understand the value of seeking input from the grassroots as it informs policy that's being made here. That's a challenge. But it's also an opportunity. And that's why we've created this kind of 5-step process where we have the virtual planning group, the virtual working groups, the data acquisition, tools like the phone survey and the online survey and the DEAM tool and the regional workshops. And all of those are going to provide inputs that will inform both the digital equity plan and the BEAD plan. I think there's one last question that you had that I can answer shortly, and I might ask Sunny to weigh in here, is that I think we're one of the only states that still does random, a random sampling dial survey to get as large a sample as possible. There are new spam blocker protections that have been installed that make it really difficult to get to a sample size that's required for a state this large and stay within budget. We're gonna get there, but I think your question, and here's a call to action, is that is why the voice of community and the voice of residents are so important here, that we've created that online mobile friendly survey and had it translated into 14 languages, and we're creating those audio files because we don't want to be constrained by the phone, and we know that mobile phones are relatively ubiquitous. So that is a built-in, it was built in as a complementary approach to gaining more residential data. I think now it's a little bit more of a contingency. And so the call to action to the Broadband Council members and the members of the public is like, really need your help in promoting the online mobile friendly version of the survey to help us, kind of crowdsource information on, needs assessments, barriers. There's also an embedded speed test in the online mobile friendly version. So to the extent that we can get, support from the ecosystem partners to promote that, we're really going to be supporting it with a really big data acquisition process. So Sunny, did I leave anything out?
You did a great job. Deputy Director Adams, to be very formal. I want to assure you and Director Bailey Crimmins and Commissioner Hauk and Director Osborne and Secretary Tong. I go to bed at night thinking about your directions to me, and I wake up in the morning thinking, how are we going to ensure nobody is left out of this process who wants to be involved? And so those 5 strategies are very reinforcing. And I want to, I think, share appropriately in this forum what a difference it is making to have all of the state agencies working together out throughout California. There is a lot of very positive interaction with people and the other stakeholders that is going to be so valuable going forward in implementing all of the state's plans, what the legislature has enacted. So that's a very important observation I just wanted to share. Secondly, Director Bailey Crimmins, you are absolutely right about the stepped up aggressive blocking on spam that is happening on both landlines and mobile phones. And that is different literally in the last 6 months. So we have worked twice as hard to get the same number of phone surveys. I'm very happy to say we crossed over the 1,000 mark last night, which means we got to a sample that has a 3% margin of error, which is a very important benchmark as well. What we are doing with that, indeed, only California is doing all of this work, number one, that was just outlined by Scott. Number two, nobody is doing this kind of investment in trying to get a real sample of the full population. There is no list anywhere. So the only way really to do it is this approach. And the online survey is a great complement. What we will do collectively and what you will have at the end of this process is a lot of analysis of what can be relied on as a representative sample and methodology for the future that doesn't need to have such an expensive methodology as a random digit dialing phone survey. So that'll be very helpful. We are going to be augmenting out of the sample that is a randomized sample of phone numbers, also pushing out the online survey and being able to separate that out from all the other online responses so we can give you that data analysis. And we're moving on then to oversample with the help of the state agencies, covered populations that are priorities and rural counties, rural regions in much larger numbers than we've had before. So I think all of these things work together, and the workshops are actually also driving more traffic to the other 4 streams of work. And that's exactly what was intended in terms of the synergy.
Thank you, Mr. Adams and Ms. McPeak. It's great because I think the presentation was good, but I felt like that the additional context is very helpful for the council members and for the public. So I really, really appreciate that. Any other questions from the panel members or council before we go to, I think we still have Rob Osborne that's going to give a quick update. All right, I see none, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Osborne from the CPUC.
Thank you, Director Bailey Crimmins. As Commissioner Hauk already mentioned, the CPUC opened an order instituting rulemaking to develop rules as required by the federal government to stand up a grant program in California. A little more on the 5-year action plan that was in the timelines. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So you'll see on the far right of this slide, 5-year action plan due to NTIA. This is at the end of August. The 5-year action plan is a high-level strategy document on closing the digital divide and ensuring equity. It is due 270 days after we received our initial planning funds, which puts us at the end of August. This is really going to be informed in a large part by the public engagements that are underway to provide the public opportunities to have input on the 5-year action plan. And also these engagements will help inform our initial and final proposals, which I'll touch on in a moment. As you'll see in this timeline, and in the middle, it says FCC map. So by May 15th of this year, the FCC will essentially freeze their map and use that for the NTIA. The NTIA will use that as the basis for determining the BEAD allocation for each state, and that will be determined by the end of June. So at that time, we'll know how much money will be available for the last mile grant program for California. So that money will not all come at once. The first 20% of that allocation will be made available upon approval of the initial proposal, which is due 180 days after the allocation in June. That puts us around the end of December. The remaining 80% will be made available upon approval of the final proposal, which is due 12 months after approval of the initial proposal. So I hope I haven't confused everyone. There's a number of things in there. So getting back to the initial proposal, so this is what we have to provide by December. This will describe the competitive process by which the CPUC will be selecting subgrantees to construct broadband projects. The initial proposal has to be made available for public comment, and the initial proposal has to incorporate local coordination and feedback. So as I said earlier, this is all part of the engagements, and we will continue public outreach after the formal 20 engagements that the Director Adams mentioned have concluded. The final proposal describes how the CPUC is complying with the initial proposal and the results of its processes. And like the initial proposal, the final proposal must be made available for public comment prior to submission. So these are the two sort of large milestones for getting the first 20% with the initial proposal approval, and then the second tranche, which is the 80%, which is made available upon approval of the final proposal. So one other thing I wanted to add is the NTI just yesterday published a model challenge process for the map. And so the challenge process is one of the items that is addressed in the CPUC rulemaking that I mentioned earlier. But I encourage people to download the NTIA's model challenge process, which is something you can find on the web. I just did a web search and found it for the BEAD map. The comments are due by May 5th, which is a pretty short amount of time, but this will basically determine how states can initiate the challenge process for the BEAD map for California. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Director Bailey Crimmins.
Thank you, Director Osborne. I really appreciate the additional insight and especially those timelines. So those are, especially since there are some deadlines in May, so that was very important to point out. And so do any of the council members have any questions of Mr. Osborne before we go to public comment? I see none. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Osborne. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Pizzabella to do public comment. Go ahead, and if you would do the housekeeping, Mr. Pizzabella, and let everyone know how they can participate in the public part of the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. In order to allow everyone who wishes to comment to have the ability to do so, we respectfully request one person per entity and 2 minutes per speaker for public comments. As a member of public on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand feature in the bottom toolbar. And we will also have options for phone hand raised via *9. Public comment will go in the order of online public comments, Zoom hands, and phone hands. Seeing no public comments submitted via email before, we will go to those hands raised. I will now unmute Priscilla Nichols. Priscilla? Giving her one more chance. Priscilla Nichols. Okay.
Cole, can you manually
Yep.
unmute?
And
Miss-
that's what I've done. And we will come back to Priscilla. We will try again. So now we will allow Shelby Arthur to unmute. Shelby?
Hi, I just had a question about the Dean tool. We are working with our local organizations to submit information to represent our region. And we're actually interested in having this information also for our local planning efforts. Will we be able to access I don't know, a spreadsheet of the information that's submitted, or some data that we'll be able to incorporate into our own, perhaps, like service mapping efforts? Or is that something that once submitted, it belongs to the state, and the local agencies don't have an opportunity or have to ask for that information again, I guess? Just for reference, I'm part of the Broadband Consortium for my local region.
Great, thank you. We will make sure that you get your question answered, and we'll make that public for everyone. Oh, Sunny, did you want to, I know normally public comment, we don't respond, but you're more than happy if you want to just make a quick comment to the question.
I actually just want to acknowledge Shelby and the Pacific Coast Broadband Consortium. And they have done 3 ACP enrollment events in all 3 of our mobilizations. So just wanted to call out when I saw her come on.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. We'll now move on to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you can now unmute. Jeffrey, if you are talking, we cannot hear you. Give it one more minute or moment, excuse me. And I'm also going to unmute Priscilla for the option to allow for public comment, again with her hand raised. Priscilla?
Mr. Prisabella, if people are unable to speak, is there a way that they could still maybe send something in to the committee?
Yep.
And we can definitely make sure that their questions are still answered in the normal format, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. There's always opportunities for public comments on the Broadband for All portal and the California Broadband Council website. We have a form that you can share your information, your comment, and be looped into more of the information of the meetings. Those are our last 2 hands raised. Director Bailey Crimmins, and seeing we can move forward.
All right, well, thank you very much. And as we are coming to the end of our April California Broadband Council, I just want to thank the council members, the presenters, and attendees today for their contributions, because we are stronger together when we are all voicing our thoughts on how we can continue to address broadband for all. I also want to express my gratitude for those who are working diligently to move things forward. As we were hearing, it takes a village, and a lot of people are on the ground, making sure the technology is also available online, and really just making sure that this is moving forward. And so I just want to highlight for the council members and the public that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 26th, 2023, from 9:30 to 11:30. And of course, we always look forward to seeing everyone then. And with that, I will go ahead and conclude the April 26, 2023 California Broadband Council meeting. It has been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.